If you guys have been following our channel, we do reviews over on Audioholics. We've ran through a lot of pre-pros this year, the past few months actually. So I just kind of want to touch on if you guys are thinking about getting out of buying receivers, you want to go into the separates route. We'll talk about a couple of the best preamp processors that we've reviewed that we think are kind of worth the money, especially if you want to kind of up your audio game. You want to get away from receivers. So for me personally, I don't know if you guys are. It's an expensive piece. It's a really expensive piece of equipment. It's going to be the Nad M17. I think we've gone through like 5 or 6 pre-pros in the last maybe 6 to 8 months now. Well, if you count my Integra, I've had that for a good solid year and a half, 2 years. But we're going to talk about the Nad M17, the Integra DRC R1, the Marantz 8805. I know it's a big one for you guys. Anthem AVM60, which is a killer deal, really good price. And my current one that I've got right now, I've got the Rotel RSP 1576. But out of those 5, there's got to be one awesome one, just like best sounding one, right? So for me personally, we'll talk about the NAD M17. I thought that one was the best sounding one. Even without room correction, it just sounded the cleanest. It does have direct room correction built in, which is, I think, like the premier. It's like one of the best ones you can get. Much better than Odyssey. Much better than Odyssey that was in the 8805. The Accu EQ which in the Integra. Absolute garbage. I hate Accu EQ. I can't stand that. And then you have Anthem, which has AVM, or their arc room correction, which is pretty close to Dirac. And then the Rotel, which only has PEQ. So you actually had to manually go in and adjust your EQ for all 11 channels, which I'll cover in a future review when I do the Rotel review. That took me a couple hours to do, actually, so that was a pain in the balls. But yeah, best sounding one right now, and it just so happens to cost the most money, the NAD M17. The cleanest sound that I've heard in my home theater so far. Just real cohesive sound field, sound staging. I'm sure it has to do a lot with direct room correction because it corrects your like your phase and time alignment and all that stuff. Does all your levels, distance. Just does everything right. Cleaner sound, just real cohesive sound field. It does cost $6,000 though, so it's a lot of money. But the main thing here is that preamp processor came out in 2014, and we're now in 2019, so it's on the same chassis. But kind of the big deal is what I think a lot of like receivers or maybe like processor manufacturers should to come out with is upgradability. Kind of like what Emotive is now doing on their RMC1, is that you can like just slide out modules in these things, kind of like a computer. Like you want to upgrade your graphics card, you go buy a new graphics card. You want to get a 2000 series graphics card because you got a 10 series from last year. Unscrew it, you pop in the new module, you got yourself a new graphics card. So the NAD works the same way. When it came out in 2014, there was no ATMOS. So it was still like $6,000 back then. But then for, I think it was like 2 years ago, maybe last year, they came out with an ATMOS module, which was like an extra $300. All you had to do was spend $300 rather than selling your $6,000 processor and buying another one. All you do is take out the existing card, and you're putting a new audio card in there. Now you have ATMOS, and then you have XLR outputs that are built into the card as well. So, which is a real smart idea. And this is back in 2014. Sure, it's a lot of money, but in the long run, if you think about it, some people buy receivers every 2 years or every year. That can add up to a lot of money in the long run. And here you're dropping $6,000 right off the bat, and you're just upgrading incrementally, maybe every few years. And I'm sure there's going to be a new HDMI 2.1 board that's going to come out. That's probably going to be like another $300 or so. So I mean, yeah, you drop $6,000, but you get a really good upgradability and kind of future-proofing your purchase. And it just so happens to be the best out of the 5 that I've tried so far. Of course, there were a couple bugs, like HDMI kind of sucked on it. That's the only reason why I decided not to keep it, because I I watched a lot of movies from my PC, and just HDMI switching was kind of horrible on it. I think I was kind of generous in my review on that when I was talking about the HDMI. But I mean, if you're just using maybe like your Blu-ray player, maybe TV, that'd be fine for that. But if you're adding other things to it, like the Apple TV was kind of a pain in the balls. The HTPC was a pain in the balls. Watching 3D from the PC was a pain in the balls. Only real negative thing about that. And the thing that sucks about it is they're not a big company like, Denon, Marantz, Pioneer, where they have big facilities for R&D where they can address these bugs in a timely manner. They're a smaller company, kind of a small niche company. So usually when you're paying a lot of money for these niche companies, you get fantastic audio quality, but then like kind of working out the bugs and fixes. Since they're so small, they might only have like 1 or 2 or 3 engineers. So it takes a long time to get those bugs worked out. Only kind of like negative thing I have to say about the NAD. Other than that, audio quality is sublime. It was stellar. Second one we'll talk about is the Anthem AVM60. So you got the NAD M17, which is $6,000. And very close in performance for me personally was the Anthem. It was the AVM60. That one I think is like $2,500. So it's either $25,000 or $3,000. So it's like literally half the price. And what makes that so special is the room correction on it. Because ARC is kind of similar in respects to Dirac. It does you can go in there. There's some really good granular controls in there to tweak your bass, your EQ. You can manually fine tune everything almost as much as you can do with Dirac. I mean, you could probably get very similar, if not exactly sounding, to Dirac if you know how to use Room EQ and Room EQ Wizard and manually do it yourself. But that one for half the price is pretty awesome sounding. It's not the best looking pre-pro. It's actually kind of ugly looking. I think it's very ugly looking, but but I think you kind of want to have good looking equipment in your rack. I just think that was kind of a plain Jane looking processor. But it's not always just about how things look. But audio wise, I didn't have any problems with HDMI on that. HDMI switching worked flawlessly, worked perfectly. There's a lot of you can do like virtual inputs. You can have like unlimited number of HDMI inputs where you can like virtually assign different ways you want to configure each HDMI input, which is kind of a cool novel idea. But again, the ARC room correction, just as good, almost as good as Dirac, I think. And then you have, and then the sound quality. Yeah, sound quality was awesome on that. But the only negative thing I had about that was it is like a 3-4 year old processor right now, and I know with like Emotiva coming out with their RMC one this year, I'm only assuming that they're gonna have to drop something new this year. That's the only reason why I didn't keep that one. I liked it so much. Plus, it was only like $2,000, $2,500, which is a real good buy. But I didn't want to keep it because it was like 4 years old, and I didn't want to buy it and then wait later on during the year, and then you'll be stuck with like out of date processor again. So I didn't want to get stuck in that route. But if that is within the budget, if you can't afford $6,000 for an NAD, the Anthem, next best one that I've heard. And then number 3 be the Marantz 8805. Marantz 8805, that's a $4,500 preamp processor. Right up there. It's right up there with the other two guys. Well, actually, I thought the NAD was just much better sounding than Marantz. I'm not a big fan of Odyssey. Odyssey always kind of messes up my level. It always messes. All these room correction systems kind of don't ever really get your levels right. You always have to kind of go back in and double check your levels anyways. But Odyssey never gets my levels right, and it always messes up the bass. Bass never sounds good after running Odyssey. Usually when I was running the 8805, I basically just kind of just turned off Odyssey, just ran it straight through. That was like my main gripe with that preamp processor. But if you want to manually go in, you can pay $20 to get the new Odyssey app, which you can go in and kind of manually tweak your EQ, all your bands. So you know that's a cool thing. But the only thing about doing that is, since it is app based, kind of fine tuning your levels and your curves are a pain in the balls. It was very hard to kind of dial in any like real granular controls, which really sucked. Which I hated doing that. And then just out of the box without any EQ, without running Odyssey on the 8805, just the sound quality I thought was all right, just out of the box. It's actually kind of warm sounding, which I'm not the biggest fan of, because the highs were rolled off a little bit, so you weren't getting as much good detail as you were getting out of like the NAD in the Anthem. Only reason why I didn't keep that one, wasn't really a big fan of not a big fan of the Marantz sound. They make some great stuff, like everything just works on it. Tons of features you get on the Marantz. You get like 3 zones or 4 zones or something like that. Video out in every zone. It's got Bluetooth, it's got Wi-Fi streaming, you get like HEOS, you get all the bells and whistles. Great support. I think there's an upgrade path to get HDMI 2.1 as well. But just as far as like sound wise, I'm not the biggest fan of Marantz. I know there's a lot of guys out there that love Marantz, but I would prefer Denon over Marantz. But wasn't my favorite pre-pro though. Then we got the Integra. Actually, I would put the Integra. I've owned the Integra for like 2 years. I bought the DRC R1 back in 2000. Actually, I bought it on my birthday. I bought it in September of 2016, and just until recently, I recently just sold it off when I got the Rotel in. So that's now gone. But that thing was the best. That was like kind of like the workhorse. That did everything just really good, except for room correction. EQ just kind of sucks. So I never used that. Just an EQ a little bit. There's kind of a real basic EQ in the Integra receivers, or sorry, processors. So you can adjust that. You get your THX modes. I've got some THX speakers and amplifiers, so that kind of worked out well. You get that. It is THX certified for what that's worth for some of you guys. But yeah, that thing just worked. It's always continuously getting updated. It just got AirPlay 2 support. It got Sonos support, all through firmware update, all within like the last few months. So really good support on Integra side. And sound quality, for me personally, I like the sound quality over the Marantz. I came from a Marantz 7705, I think I had 05 or 03, one of the two. And then I went over to the Integra. I just found more detail and clarity, especially in the ATMOS channels. Just in all the channels, just overall, I just found more detail would just come out through it. Like I said, the Marantz just sounded a little bit more warmer, a little more softer than the Integra was. So that's why I dumped the Marantz, and I stuck with the Integra for so long. HDMI always worked. I know the Integra and Akio's always had some issues with their HDMI boards, but this one stayed pretty true throughout the 2 years that I've had it. There's a newer version out, the DRC R1, that just dropped. Same thing as the DRC R1, just a regular one, minus the 0.1. I think the 0.1 adds a more updated HDT base, which if you're running longer runs of HDMI over Ethernet, I believe that's like the only main difference. I could be wrong about that, but I think that's the only difference there. So if you really want like a solid, just do everything, just really reliable pre-pro, the Integra, solid choice. I might actually go and get the 0.1 just to get it, but just because it works so good, and I really like the sound of that. So if anything, I would go like NAD, Anthem, Integra, Marantz, and then the Rotel, which I currently have, which I'm going to do a review on the Rotel probably in like a week or two. But as far as the Rotel, it's $2,400. This is like as basic as you're going to get for a preamp processor. No room correction, parametric EQ, 10-band parametric EQ, and all 11 channels and the subwoofer. So if you really want to dial in your sound, you got to get Room EQ Wizard, you got to run real-time analyzer, you got to run your analyzer, do everything manually. That took me about 4 hours to get to EQ in just right, to the way I liked it. Out of the box, the Rotel sounds like garbage. It just sounded like the worst thing I heard. and I didn't know what was going on. I had like Elias came over and had some of the fellas come over. We were just listening to it, and it just was like a really lifeless kind of receiver or processor. But then after about 4 hours adjusting PEQ, then I got up to a nice level where it was very detailed and very open sounding, rather than just really kind of like mid-range heavy. So that's just real quick thoughts on the Rotel. That's all I want to say about that. I'm going to save the full review for the review, so I don't want to give too much away for that one. But supposedly the Rotel will be getting Dirac. I've heard maybe a couple months Dirac is supposed to come to the Rotel, which is the only reason why I sold the Integra off, so I can have a Rotel in here. Because if it sounds anything like the NAD, then this could be a real game changer for the Rotel. So that's what I got. That's what I got for the best preamp processors out right now that we've had in the channel. NAD M17, my top choice, $6,000. I mean, it better be best, right? It's like $6,000. Anthem AVM60, it's going to come in at number 2. That's only like $2,500. The Integra number 3. Right now you can get that for about $1,200. Marantz 8805, my number 4 pick, $4,500. And then the Rotel, 5th place. That's my current one right now. These are my best choices as far as like for sound quality wise. As far as features wise, the Marantz is going to win. It just does everything. But sound quality wise, that's if you guys are in the market for looking for something good, you guys want to get away from your receivers, my top choices right there.